16. 11. 16. Camera.
My motivation as an artist, I suppose, has been to engage, most likely, to present work and to be able to kind of engage, and for those ideas to be able to seep into consciousness of the society and to have some kind of feeling of usefulness and effect within the kind of greater society, I suppose. Yeah.
I've got a strong social conscience. I'm motivated by the desire to, I guess, improve the world. It sounds pretty big-headed, but my intentions are most honourable.
Equity. Everyone in the world having an opportunity to fulfil their own ambitions.
I'll be active in a community way and assisting people to do things on their own.
I'm inspired by people who succeed over adversity, by people who put their money where their mouth is, by people who care for other people in a big way, the big picture, and in a little way.
People. I think I've had a long life in politics, I guess, and everywhere I go I'm inspired by people who face adversity, who try and change the world just from a little point of view or from a very large point of view. I guess I've been inspired by people as significant as Nelson Mandela, or just someone who spends a lot of time caring for their elderly parent plus has a disabled child and still manages to smile every day. That's my inspiration, people.
I think seeing people actually enjoy themselves. I think that's the thing. When you're up on stage and people are enjoying themselves, it's like just to see that and you say, wow, we're doing this, we're actually making them enjoy themselves.
Definitely my wife when she was pregnant. That's fairly awe-inspiring. I thought I'd seen everything that there is to see until I saw her give birth twice.
My background and living in Williamstown all my life, and having been a trade union official for some 40 odd years, it gives you an understanding of people that most people would never normally have.
What inspires me is really, I think, it's a difficult one because it's the changing kind of nature of what you are as a person and what you're trying to deal with within your work and within your society and family and whatever. So, I mean, things that have, I've been directly inspired by being exposed to things, whether that's other people or art or cultural things or, events, things that are good or bad, sad, happy, everything that's kind of, everything that's kind of around you as a person.
No, you've got one holding one.
Yeah, I guess I always look forward to the day. Well, almost always. I guess there were times when I was Premier that I really wanted to pull the covers over my head and say, I'm not Premier anymore, I'm not going to the office. But mostly, it's an opportunity to do things. I'm a doer, I'm not. The days that I relax are rare, and it's just an opportunity to get on with the task. Every night I write a list of the things I need to do the next day, so the next day I do.
Well, my kids wake me up, so that gets me up, but it's just to live the day for what it is.
Well, I really like being up early in the morning for starters, but usually I get up to feed the cats because they're demanding to be fed, or I look out the window and think it'd be nice to go for a walk, or else I've got something that really urgently has to be done. It's a variety of things.
The fact that at my age now you're required to take a regular amount of pills, I suppose, and also to be aware of the fact that you're alive. So it's a good thing now. Knowing that you're alive when you wake up in the morning, it's worth something to wake up to.
There've been quite a few to do with people I've seen speaking about refugees. Julian Burnside, who is a terribly, terribly moving speaker. But I think really the time when a refugee friend of mine was able to get up on stage with Actors for Refugees and speak about what had happened. And it was inspiring to see that he was able to talk about something that was deeply traumatic to him, but also seeing that that moment allowed him some sort of release from the trauma he'd been going through. So that was truly inspirational.
When I was about 13 or 14 and fairly aimless and not great at school, you know, it wasn't really fantastic for me. I remember if you're using it as that kind of bolt of lightning kind of thing, I remember sitting in the back of the art class, which, you know, was no, you know, I enjoyed art, but it was, you know, it was just something you had to do. And I opened up the back of one of these books, it might have been the Gombrick or one of those art books, and it was a tiny little sort of thumbnail image this size of a Franz Klein painting. I don't know if you know him, but it was basically a white painting with black kind of abstracted lines across it. And I remember seeing that and it just blew me away, you know. First of all, what it was seemed to have architectural kind of reference. It just opened up this whole kind of world for me that, you know, there was this sense that something could be done gesturally in an abstract way, and it seemed to hit me, and I had not a great art kind of background or anything. I don't know why, but it just blew me away, and it probably made me look at everything differently. And then when I realised that the painting that was a thumbnail was like sort of 15 feet by 25 feet, of course it added to the boisterousness of it. But yeah, I mean, just that knocked me, and it kind of always made me interested and, you know, questioning about looking at art and the implications of what art did historically and what it still can do today, which for a kid who really didn't like thinking about stuff like that too much, that was probably a bit of a bolt of lightning.
There'd be a few. I mean, the kids I'm always going to be speaking about because they sort of inspire you every day with the way that they want to learn. And my oldest has just turned 4 and she's just starting to learn to read. And when they just sort of grasp hold of what letters and numbers and all that sort of thing, those sort of things are, it's sort of fairly inspiring that they, in those sort of first 7 years, apparently you learn most of that, of what you're learning in life in those first 7 years. So watching them going through that's pretty inspiring. And just the people that are involved with from a professional point of view, and that's the way that they sort of go about their business and get the most out of themselves. I'm fairly lucky to be involved with sort of that culture where it is about getting the most out of yourself individually and then bringing that together as a team. So that's sort of fairly inspiring watching people go about their business. Yeah.
What actually inspires me is also older people that, you know, like 80 and 90 and are still sort of active and still sort of, that's when you talk to them about life and how they've always kept a sense of humour about things. And so that's, you know, I'd like to be doing that.
I've learned from a lot of people. I wouldn't call them role models because I don't think you ever want to be the same as someone else. You've always got to be, unless you're yourself, you really can't live with yourself, I don't think. So I've had a lot of people who I've learned from. People like my aunt, who was a great reader. People like my mother, who was very determined. My father, who was called in the old days a nature's gentleman, had a great respect for people, great kindness for people. People like Jean Blackburn, who I worked with in education, who was one of the very early feminists. People like Mary Robertson, the President of Ireland, or former President of Ireland, who has such a strong sense of what it is to be a feminist and also a leader.
I guess the real spiritual experience I had once was that I went to Assisi in Italy, and I was really surprised myself actually by becoming very interested in St. Francis of Assisi, and I think that made an impact on me. Not that I'd say he was my role model, because I'm not interested in being very poor and whatnot, but the general philosophy really interested me.
Probably my father would be, from a non-sporting one, would be a role model, and a guy by the name of John Andrews. And from a professional point of view, which is sport obviously, there'd be quite a few. Stephen Wallace, Scott Wine, and probably Tony Vittorio.
I don't have any role models. No, I don't. But I would say that I've probably been very lucky in my group of friends, and a lot of them are involved in the arts and whatever. And I would say that there's a very strong relationship between that in work-wise and in a kind of ethical, social, moral, whatever it is way that I would say probably buddies, really, rather than any kind of particular mentoring type situation.
My greatest achievement, apart from having a wonderful son, is political things that I've done that have maybe made some small change. And I've done it through using my skill as an actor to take the stories of refugees to people, the true stories, to undermine, really, what the government has fed to the people.
Undoubtedly becoming, from my background, becoming Secretary of the Meat Industry Union of Victoria. Then a number of things in the arts field that I've achieved.
AFL football at the highest level, and probably my first game was probably my greatest moment.
And how old were you then?
I was 17.
Most recently it was getting somebody out of detention. Something that I didn't think we'd ever manage to do, and we did. And that was fantastic.
Well, I suppose apart from children is persistence. If I'm thinking, we're in my studio, so I'm kind of thinking about practice and the art.
Leaving Darlington, my hometown, when I was 16, that would definitely be the hardest one. I think Mum was the reason why that was probably the hardest. She didn't want me to leave, and I had this dream of playing AFL footy, and the dream was there, and I had to sort of get off my bum and grab hold of it then, otherwise it mightn't have come around again. And it was pretty hard leaving home as a 16-year-old. Yeah.
For you?
For a personal one, yeah.
Yeah.
Leaving my marriage. That was difficult.
Yeah, for me, I think leaving home, when I was younger, I think it was the big decision for me, just to leave home. Because being European family and stuff, and Dad wants everybody at home, but coming to Australia, you realise that, things are different.
I think probably to sell the State Bank of Victoria, that I became Premier not expecting to be Premier, and the economy was not in good shape. And the State Bank, of course, is a symbol of the wealth and security of Victoria. And I still had my mum and dad's bank book, state bank book, though they'd passed on. So I knew for many people it was a symbol of Victoria's strength. And Victoria was being undermined by the international recession. And I had to decide whether I'd increase the debt by holding on to the bank or whether I'd sell it and lower the debt. And I'm not an economist, but I had all this economic advice. And what I finally set out to do was actually write down my values. That's why I made the final decision. I had every bit of advice. I had Paul Keating telling me what to do or asking me to do what he wanted me to do. I had others. And eventually I just sat down and wrote down my values, and my first one was people matter. And then I knew that whether I sold it or not, what I had to make sure was that the workers were protected. And that I did for the first 12 months until then Paul actually took the share, Paul Keating took the share, the state share of the Commonwealth Bank, and then eventually the Commonwealth Bank itself was sold.
My most memorable moment probably was a sunrise, because it's just stayed with me forever. When I think of what one of the most beautiful moments in my life has been, it was seeing the sun come up over a silver sea in Java. My best friend was sharing the room with me and I had to wake her up and say, quick, you've got to see this. It was something that was more unbelievably beautiful than you could possibly imagine.
Landing in Malta?
Yeah, mine was landing in Malta
Yeah.
in 91, I think we went.
It was the first time we went there.
Yeah, but the first time we actually went, like when because I was only 2 when we came to Australia and Michael was 7.
Yeah.
And so to spend all that time in Australia and learn really the Maltese culture here, and then having to go back and see the house we were born in and how our folks used to live and everything, that was quite a big change.
So giving birth to children, I think, is and not only giving birth, but knowing they're all right, and then your husband coming in, because those days the husband wasn't with you, to share in the glory of what you've created and what they might become. And I think that's probably the most memorable moment.
I would say being elected to the position of Secretary of the Meat Industry Union, that to me was a big thing. Again, from my background, and it was a reward for my work, for my own kind within the meat works, other areas where I sold my labour.
Well, there's a lot, but it'd have to be having children. I think, you know, it's just having children. I think, you know, just that kind of just before it happened and all that kind of extraordinary stuff that goes on with that.
A few embarrassing moments to do with blokes, relationship things. I guess it was getting into a lift, pashing this young fella. I was about 15, and we were all over each other like a rash. And 2 friends of my parents, very close friends of my parents, got into the lift, and I was supposed to introduce them to this man that I was kissing most passionately, and I couldn't remember his name.
You know, I was doing a drum solo once, and it was sort of this show thing where, very Spinal Tap, where I got on top of the stool and I'd normally jump down and sort of on the stool and like bang and crescendo and everything, but
It was funny.
the stool,
It was actually funny.
the stool collapsed. The
I was
stool
laughing
collapsed.
my head off.
Yeah, the stool collapsed underneath me, and I think my head hit the tom tom. So like, yeah,
The best solo I've ever seen.
made a good sound and everything. Yeah.
By far.
A couple of weeks to recover.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
One was when I did what you never do in public life, put bathers on to actually open the new spa up at Dalesford at Hepburn Springs, and went to step into the pool, and guess what? There wasn't a step there.
Oh no.
So I disappeared in the water. But the thing the media did, because they were all there, was to play it like those Max Sennett comedy films where I went in and out of the pool. I was a disaster.
I remember like one really awful one. As a kid, I remember being in the classroom, and it was a school fete, and people had brought in like cakes and stuff like that, and I don't know. This is a funny one because it was just childhood sort of thing, you know. And I remember being really hungry, and I was overweight, and you know I was the sort of bigger kid in the class, and I was really hungry. And there was this cake on the kind of side of the table people had been holding, you know, like storing up stuff for the fete. And I remember kind of just going, bugger it, I'm starving, and I ripped into the cake. And I sort of thought it perhaps would go unnoticed, and it was pineapple cake. It was something, I really didn't even like it anyway, but I was starving and I ate it in a gluttonous fashion. And I remember the class sort of came back on, and it had been noted that the cake was gone, and it was one of those, well, who ate the cake? And I remember just feeling really greedy and revolting, and you know, and I had to own up, and I was like, I don't think I was like You know, there was a bit of sort of, you know, corporal punishment, I think, in my day at school. But I can't remember that. I just remember being acutely embarrassed about it. Yeah.
I had the shorts pulled down once playing footy.
Yeah.
And I also played on after the siren to have a shot at goal. I'd forgotten that you couldn't actually play on, and obviously they stopped me having the shot, so that was pretty embarrassing.
Oh, I suppose like most males, moments of rejection, I suppose, by females. That seems to be terribly embarrassing to me. I thought I was flash, but rejection that area sort of takes you back a bit, doesn't it?
I love watching sport. I was lucky because as an only child, my dad wanted a boy, so you know I got to go to the football and to the tennis and play tennis and the cricket with him. So it was great when I became premier because I knew something about sport. People didn't expect me to, boys sport. And I bagged for Essendon because my father did and I didn't have any choice. And I've been a member of the Essendon Club, and we now have a women's section of that club, thanks to myself and a few others, which talks football, not does mannequin parades, talks football. So yes, I love my sport.
Well, people who are bored, basically, you know, and who are too busy, they annoy me a lot because I see them wasting opportunities. The flies irritate me. And people who don't sort of appreciate what's around them very much. You know, they're always looking for something better or bigger or whatnot, and they don't take care of what they've already got.
Cleaning. Yeah, you got
drunk people.
Yeah, you got this thing about drunk people.
I do, because I mean I've just seen it all my life. You see a person deteriorate. You're on stage and you see.
What are you talking about, mate?
Yeah, whatever. But you see a person come in and you think, wow, what a great, great looking person, guy or girl, whatever, and then you see them just deteriorate as the night goes on.
So don't know the limitations.
That's right. They just become very sort of ugly.
Yeah.
What annoys me? What annoys me is disrespect. And what annoys me is people using power for power's sake, rather than, and that's whether they're politicians or someone serving you in a shop or the police or whoever it is, people using power for power's sake, physical power or intellectual power, rather than using it with other people to change the world. The great difference between myself and Jeff Kennett, and why he had his virtues and I guess I have too, is that I see democracy as being power with the people. It isn't being elected and then using your power on the people. And so what really annoys me, I guess, is the misuse of power by those who have it and should be sharing.
I get pretty irritable about lots of little stupid things that shouldn't annoy people, like bad spelling, like Americanisms, like kids wearing I Love America or American flags on their t-shirts. Not that I hate America, I just think we should be proud, not proud to be Australian, grateful to be Australian, thankful to be Australian. So shocking spelling, shocking American expressions overtaking our wonderful Australian slang. Can't we say blokes instead of guys? I hate being called a guy when I'm really a girl. All that stuff, silly things. But really what I'm really deeply, deeply annoyed about is the way the Howard government has led the Australian public down the wrong track and taken us to a place that we shouldn't be in.
Oh, I think people who procrastinate and feel they don't have an ability to contribute to society, I think that annoys me because people have got so much to offer. Society needs it.
what annoys me would be closed-mindedness and people not being able to kind of look, you know, far enough and thinking that they've seen something and then going, yeah, that's enough, and shutting down. Particularly that comes into art and everything to do with that as well. But yeah, people that are just a bit shut down, and I don't know. I think they could be trained out of it, you know.
Yeah.
Joan, if you could change 5 things, what would they be?
The government, the federal government, better state that again, the federal government, and I connect that back to my belief that people should be respected. This federal government is changing the culture of Australia to be one of division, where only the people who agree with them are respected and the others are set against them. And I have not seen Australia in a worse state of division and lack of respect for each other and lack of collective action and emphasis on individual benefit. I have not, of 67 years of living, I have not seen it worse. And so that's one thing I want. The second thing I want is the Labor Party federal to be clear about what it stands for, to go out there and not be scared of the opinion polls or the Herald Sun, which tries to, where Murdoch tries to run our opinions, but to actually stand up that we do stand for social justice, we do stand for environmental justice. We do not believe people should be put in jail for having different beliefs. So that's the second thing I'd change. The third thing I'd change is the violence that's created against women, perpetrated against women and children. So still 1 in 5 women have experienced sexual violence, 1 in 5. And as the matron of the both the Women's Circus and Domestic Violence Victoria, you know, every month I'd get stories of how women are abused by men who think they own them and who get their kicks, literally their kicks, from proclaiming their power. And therefore, as the alternative, that my fourth one would be to continue to empower women. Because once women understand that every one of them has a little bit of power, and you've got 2 choices. You can either use it for your own and others' benefit and put it together with other women, as I have over the years, and change the world and make a difference, or you can give it away. And if you give it away, then don't come complaining to me. But then sometimes you're not strong enough to allow people to stop people from taking it away from you. And that's when people like myself and others can intervene and demonstrate how you can empower yourself to get power, to hold it, and to use it for your own and others' sakes.
I wouldn't change too much, actually. I'd probably change from a world perspective point of view. I'd probably change just the way religion divides people. I'm non-religious, so it's probably fairly easy for me to say that, but I just think that, you know, if you are religious, that's fantastic. You've got something to almost sort of lean on and use that as sort of a way of getting through, and I totally agree with all of that. And I'm non-religious, as I say, but just the way that sort of divides so many people and so many cultures, and you just need to relax a bit and enjoy it and learn about it and use it as your way of living, but don't make it something that divides you from the person next door.
The federal government, that's 3, the federal government and the federal government, and maybe the American government as well, and then all the problems of the world would disappear.
Clean energy. I think this planet needs to have clean energy.
Yes.
So we have the technology now to actually change to you know, less fossil fuels, and it exists today. It's just a matter of actually governments implementing, you know, law that has to be. Water, you know, that everyone should be able to have clean, fresh running water all throughout the world, and that's actually possible as well. Just organisation.
And
I
rain.
think rain helps. I think all musicians, especially in Australia, should have some kind of dole, you know, because it's a respectful occupation, and not many people actually are able to make a living from it, because it's musicians' wage has not moved for the last 25 years. You know, it's like, because there are a lot of part-time musicians, everyone's sort of undercutting each other, you know, so that's difficult even for us to keep sort of a band together. So musicians' dole, clean energy, water.
And clean energy and clean energy.
Clean energy and clean energy. And just, I think, just an idea also of changing everyone's concept of the world, of like the fact that we're on this sphere in the middle of this solar system in, you know, who knows how many more, and we just the fact that actually we're alive here for, like, you know, X amount of years in relation to how long this world's been here, and to understand that concept that we're just, you know, we're on this sort of this thing together, you know, and so that concept to change that, it's just thinking more that the world is sort of one sort of big community.
Life is a cabaret, old chum. Only a cabaret, old chum. Come to the cabaret.
Favourite TV show? You mean my favourite radio show? There wasn't any TV. Can you believe that? There was no TV. There was no computers. So I think my favourite TV show, my favourite radio show when I was a child was Pick a Box. And that's how I first met Barry Jones, because he had this amazing memory and picked all the boxes right. So, but I used to sit and study listening to the radio. And so, you know, it was a Lux Radio Theatre, but I hated the serials and Blue Hills with all those wimpy women, and I didn't like that. But knowledge shows, I guess I liked, and I still do. I still like to watch quiz shows.
Gilligan's Island.
That's exactly what I was going to say,
Yeah.
but I didn't say it.
Good there.
Gilligan's Island, yeah. That was good.
And Bewitched was good.
Actually, yeah, it's...
Bewitched, she was
But
great.
Gilligan's Island just had, you know, he was the slacker, the underachiever, and skipper, and kept
Yeah, they had.
Yeah. And you know, my favourite thing about that show was the little musical interludes.
Yeah.
Change of seats.
I know, actually. I did a show once with the football players.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
MASH and Doctor Who.
I think it was the Mickey Mouse Club. They were having such fun, those kids, and I wanted to be like that, singing and dancing and kicking up the heels and being silly.
I never had TV shows when I was a child. We used to listen to Crosby Morrison's nature program, Biggles and things like that. Wrigley's was the advertising. And we were lucky we had a wireless in our house. I know they had in John Street. And everyone else came the Sunday afternoon to hear the wireless. So I missed out on the TV.
Well, we didn't actually have TV when I was a child, so I used to listen to the radio, and I belonged to some club called I think it was called the Argonauts or something like that, where you actually got certificates and, you know, were a member, and every now and then you got a mention for doing something. And then later on I liked listening to music, and now I like listening to news programs and crime shows on television.
Yeah, not smiling.
No, I know, that's right. We could be here for a couple of hours on that one, you know. I did good TV as a kid, you know. I remember, you know, really early kind of memories of the kind of Saturday morning, all the, I suppose they were Hanna-Barbera cartoons and all that stuff, and but you know, after school we'd come home, flick on the TV, Gunsmoke, you know, Chuck Connors, all those kind of Rifleman, Daniel Boone. I was interested in outdoorsy kind of stuff, you know, those sort of man against nature kind of gear I liked. And then all the kind of, I don't know, the classic kind of Maxwell Smarts, Hogan's Heroes, right up to kind of MASH and whatever. We were quite lucky as kids because I had like 2 older sisters and another younger sister, and I think we were probably a fair bit of hard work. So my mum used to go to bed very early, and we were allowed to put ourselves down. So I remember doing like, Number 96 and all those kind of shows that no one else was allowed to watch. We watched them all. So, I like TV, as a kid.
This is for art.
True.
Yeah, it's for art, so it's very good. No.
I used to dream about owning an orphanage because I had such a good, happy family, and I felt sorry for kids who didn't. So the do-gooder is always there. The bleeding heart, proud to be a bleeding heart I am. And then I decided I'd like to be a ballerina because my mother took us to the ballet, and that was a dream world and a very beautiful world, and I love the classical music that people dance to. So I was, for a while, a classical ballet dancer before I decided it was a bit too much like being a nun, and became an actor, which is nothing like being a nun at all.
Well, we actually didn't have a choice, I don't think.
No, what you wanted to be, though. Well,
Yeah, no, what you want.
Well,
Yeah.
what it,
no, well, I didn't know that you can actually make a living from making music. I just thought it was something you sort of did on the weekend. So when I was growing up, I was really into electronics and ham radio and did all that type of thing. And I was really seriously into it. And then at year 10, at the end of year 10, before I started year 11, we got offered this 4-month tour of Queensland, like getting at that point like $175 a week. And I went, what, you mean you can actually make a living doing this? You mean, really? Forget the electronics.
yeah.
That was it, that's when it started. We
started playing music very early in life.
Yeah, I was 6 and he was 11 when we started
gigging.
Every Friday and Saturday doing the
Maltese
weddings
dances
or dances or an engagement, and balls or anything. And,
That was fun.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, it took our weekends away. I think that's what I noticed as I got older. I thought,
hey, what a social life,
I didn't sort of get out as much as
Yeah.
I would have liked to. I mean, because you're always entertaining the people, and but it was good.
I used to have
Good experience. I'm making up for it now.
That's right, yeah. The recollections of, we used to play rock mass, like we used to play the organ, I'd play the drums for mass 9:30 every Sunday. But it would interfere with my soccer match, and so what would happen is I'd play the match, I'd play the rock mass on the drums in my soccer boots. And as soon as the match finished, my uncle would take me to the soccer match and I'd play the second half as a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
So that was the deal.
And I had to set down the gear.
Yeah, thanks for that too.
No worries.
Well, I suppose when I was a child, I was looked after by a family called Caggers, because my mother had 2 daughters and myself and had to go to work, and it wasn't easy for a woman in them days. And it's not easy for women today on her own to rear children. They were fisher folk, and I wanted to be a fisherman. And indeed, as a matter of record, I would be the last living line of poachers in Williamstown. The Caggers were very, very professional poachers, and I was one of their apprentices and graduated to be a good poacher.
When I was a kid, I wanted to be Superman and Bruce Dool, who was a Carlton player.
Well, when I started to think about that series, I mean, I can't really remember what I wanted to be at the time, when everybody wants to be an engine driver or whatever the equivalent is for girls. I don't think girls, I'm probably a wife and mother. But when I started to think about it seriously, I wanted to work in a hospital, because at that stage in my life I was in the Junior Red Cross, and we used to go to the hospital a lot, and it looked very glamorous and exciting in the hospital. But of course the only time I've been in hospital it's been pretty boring and nasty actually. So when I did start working I became a teacher and a social worker, and I guess was much the same. The working with people was probably the thing that I really wanted to do.
I remember at school we had to fill in the thing of what you want to be when you grow up, and I had to do it 2 years in a row. And one was the kind of, garbo, because I was the class clown, I presume, and I remember spy, which might have been Maxwell Smart. I was just being a fool, but I really had no idea as a kid, and I think even to come to painting was it was probably a bit of a bolt from the blue. There was a time where performance was quite a big thing. I played music for a little while. Well, I didn't play music, but I used to sing in a band, and still to this day there's something about the idea of working in a collaborative sense with music or whatever that is really I kind of love to do. But I figure I love the kind of painting, and I love art, but I'm still a bit of a kid, and I'm hoping to have another kind of 40 years or more.
So you haven't grown up yet?
No, and anything could happen in the future.
Yep.
It could go any way.
I've always wanted to be there out in front of the class, never at the back of the room, teaching, and that's what I became, and it was a great profession. And then when I wanted to go into politics, I was asked to. I wanted to be the Minister for Education, and I fortunately became that. And I guess, that's my message to kids when I talk to them. You can be what you want to be, provided there's not some tragedy, but if you've got a sense of purpose and you work for it, and you work with other people rather than against them, you can actually become what you want to be.
My message is the yogic message of live for now. It's the way to true happiness. But I guess if I had a message that involves changing people, it would be to open your heart to people from all walks of life, from all nationalities, people who come here seeking our help. They deserve it.
I suppose for those who are brought the arts to the Williamstown, I think that's to use to be congratulated on. I think it's long overdue, and you haven't had this sort of sport, and I like to see that there's not relying on older people like me, long past the creative stage. There's a younger creative group about.
Mine would be, this is a tattoo I have, which is JIEM, which is jar in every moment, which is like just, really living in the moment, We have things that we want to do, and we have this, you can have this general anxiety, or you can have this, wallowing or living in the past, but just, it's actually quite hard to do, but just living in the moment, enjoying it, like right now,
Yeah.
A message to young people, I think, is just to sort of hold hard and to not be too frightened by everything, and to retain a sense of your own power and chance. You know what I mean? That they can actually, although they're seeing all this rubbish and they're probably having a hard time, and I've got 2 little kids, so you do feel a bit emotional about sometimes what you shield them from and whatever, but you'd like to think that they had a chance to sort of maybe change things, or to kind of at least, live within a kind of a maelstrom in a fruitful way, rather than being knocked over by it.
Just hold it for as long as you can.
In that same sort of position, that you had it like that, box like that side.
Au revoir, Uda Ofes, adios, selamat malam.
Right, Michael.
How do you keep those candles alight, Jack?
I'll tell you, I wanted that lighted like those.
Well, this time it's right.
I like it, man.
This reminds me.
It's good. Makes me feel like home, mate.
So anyway, this guy walks into a campus and says, "Excuse me, let's go." Anyway, oh, hello. Oh, sorry. Oh, whoops.